Hello and welcome to Eco Girl in a Modern World. My name is Shelley and my channel is dedicated to talking about ways to be more environmentally friendly in a modern context. This video I wanted to talk about fashion red flags, and it's interesting, this kind of concept has been kind of circling YouTube. I've seen a lot of my favorite content creators talking about this, and it's basically talking about it just helps sharpen when you're out looking for clothing, whether that's secondhand in thrift stores, online, or in brick and mortar stores, if it's new, if it's pre-owned, just kind of that little checklist that you have to say, okay, would this item be a good fit for me? And I talk about this. There's kind of an eco rules list that I follow all the time. I mention it at just about every single video on the channel, and you'll probably hear me reiterate a lot of these, these kind of guidelines. And what it does is it just really serves you, because of course, there's another channel here on YouTube called, by Christina Micus, and she always says, "Don't buy a problem." She also says, if it's not a heck yes, it's a no. But don't buy a problem really plays into your red flags, because if you know what you're looking for, you can avoid buying something that's going to be a problem later, which you'll either have to return or may not go back into the circle. So it always saves you money, it saves you sanity, and you just know going into it, this would be a good fit for you. Now, this is, I've decided, I've seen both the red flags videos and the green flags videos, and of course the green flags is what you're looking for, that is a green light, that this would be a good product to buy. I'm going to do that as a second video. And we're starting with the red flags. It's not to be a negative Nancy or anything like that. It's just, I just think it's very helpful. I'm a Libra, and I always feel like ruling out what you don't want is probably the best way to leave you with the product pool of what would work well for you. So I just think it's a good practice. It's a good way to just kind of narrow it down or filter it down to what you really need. Also in this video, I'm going to talk about, there's going to be a few things that are a red flag for me, but that I have still bought, and I'll tell you why I bought it. So this is not, hard and fast rules. It's just kind of guidelines to help. And of course, you might find something that that kind of bends the rule a little bit, but still enables you to enjoy, something that you've purchased secondhand or anything like that. So we're going to go ahead and jump right in. First red flag, and you've probably heard me say this, anything that is made of synthetic fabrics, polyester and especially acrylic. First off, the reason for this is because polyester is made from polyurethane. It's petrol, it's gas, it's oil. And you think that we just put gas in our cars? No, polyester is made of petroleum. So it's using resources that we don't have a whole lot of, that we're going to run out of eventually. And the production of that clothing not only uses a lot of petroleum, but it also causes a lot of carbon. So especially if it's something that you're buying new, I avoid polyester. The other thing also applies to acrylic. Acrylic is what you see in more of the fuzzy blankets. It's really soft, but what it is it is a synthetic plastic material, and all of that fuzz breaks off into very, very small particulates that gets into water. So anytime you wash it or anytime you wear it, the little particulates do become airborne. And not to scare anyone, but they have found microplastics in both our water, because it's so small that we can't get it out of our water. So microplastics can be ingested through drinking water. Also, it is airborne. It's something that you can inhale, and there are studies that are coming out, because this is fairly new, that if you have the fuzzy coat, you have the fuzzy blanket, you have a fuzzy pillow, you can breathe in microplastics. And so for that reason, I don't buy polyester or acrylic new. You can find high quality brands of polyester. It's not like it's not like you can't find a good quality version of it. But I do, if I do buy polyester, it's secondhand, and I don't buy acrylic at all, whether that's secondhand or new. I just feel like the particulates, the microplastics, are just too terrible with acrylic. And it breaks my heart, because sometimes I'll see a beautiful cardigan or sweater, and I'll pop the tag and I'll see there's acrylic in it, and I'm not going to buy it. The other thing is that acrylic and polyester, especially as we go into summer, you're going to see a lot of lace outfits, lace skirts, lace tops. And whenever it's a synthetic fiber, the lace is just a lot more itchy, I've noticed. And there's other content creators, I think Beep World talks about this too. She just knows that it's going to be uncomfortable against the skin. And again, not to say that there's not exceptions to the rule. If you do find a polyester secondhand garment that's soft to the touch and it's lace, that's fine. I mean, you do you, but I just noticed that synthetic fabrics tend to be pretty itchy. Even when it's 100% cotton, sometimes lace can be a little itchy. Either that or it would be lace where the main material is cotton, but the embroidery or the thread is a polyester. And again, it can just, especially in the summer months, it can kind of rub. The other thing about polyester is that it does not breathe real well. Because it is a synthetic fabric, it tends to trap heat. And even if it's one of those moisture wicking styles, all that means is that on a micro level that it has openings, it has holes, but anywhere there's not a hole, it is still the fabric against your skin. And also some people can have allergic reactions to polyester because it is a synthetic fabric. It's not a natural fabric. So those are just things that I kind of avoid. It's kind of a red flag if I see it on a tag. But that's not to say that I haven't bought new things. And actually, when we talk about pilling in a minute, that was a new sweatshirt. The other thing is ribbed clothing, and ribbed is that kind of lined kind of material. And the reason being that is that ribbed material kind of looks cheap. And the crazy thing is sometimes you can spend a lot of money on a brand new garment that has the ribbing. And I think the reason that it looks so cheap is because it's so associated with stretching. When something's a ribbed texture, it can pull and expand, which makes it easier to be one size fits all. And normally when one size fits all, it means that it's easily sold. It's kind of, again, it ties into kind of that exclusivity. It's not tailored for you. It's a fabric that can stretch to fit any body type. And you see that in a lot of cheap clothing, but again, I've seen $150 ribbed tops. And again, high quality material, but it has that ribbing. The other thing is that the ribbing makes it where parts of the material are thinner than other parts. So it can, if you do snag it in the wrong place, it can cause holes pretty easily. So I tend to avoid ribbed clothing for that reason. Again, if you like it, if you like the way it looks, if you like the way that it fits, go for it. That's just kind of my stance on it. I just feel like it doesn't always look really, really quality. The third one is PVC or polyvinyl. Basically, it is kind of like polyester, except it's the kind of that lacquered material. It's the reason why is because it does not breathe. You will sweat like the dickens in a pair of PVC pants. The other thing is it's used for a lot of purses, a lot of shoes, a lot of coats, and fake leather pants use PVC. It's got a lot of chemicals in the way that it's made. It's not, it doesn't have as much microplastics, but the other thing is it doesn't age very well. If you have a quality cotton or linen shirt that could last you like 30 or 40 years, PVC after about 10 years, and if it's exposed to heat or, dry climates, it's going to start drying out and flaking. If you think of a PVC couch that's had a hole, or, you see those infomercials that talk about how to patch a hole in a PVC couch. It's kind of the same thing with a garment, or shoes. It's going to eventually crack and break, and it doesn't biodegrade. And that's the other thing with polyester or acrylic. It takes a long time for PVC. Anything synthetic, it's probably going to be 700 years to biodegrade, and that entire time it's leaking really bad chemicals. So it doesn't last as long. And again, one of the rules on my channel is we like to, if you buy something new, buy it with the expectation of wearing it 30 times or more. And when you do that, you really want it to go the distance. You don't want it to be something that's going to crack or fade or, become something that isn't very durable. The next thing is non-Colorfast products, and this is definitely hypocritical of me, because a lot of Colorfast dyes, like and especially bright colors, tend to be kind of toxic dyes. Anything that's really Colorfast, those are not the best dyes in the world. And as we go forward, I am going to be doing posts about what's in dyes. There's something called azo dyes, AZO dyes, that are real permanent. But the other side of it is that you can find natural dyes, but the problem is after you've dyed it, that garment is going to bleed. It doesn't, no matter how you look at it, if it's a natural dye or if it's a synthetic dye, you have to treat it with a chemical process for that garment to retain its color. And my thing is, I just can't stand anything that bleeds. You think about it, you've seen the episode of The Simpsons where, Bart throws his red hat in with all of Homer's white shirts, and the same thing can absolutely happen with your clothes. And you don't want to have to, it makes that piece high maintenance. And the other thing is, if you're shopping secondhand, there's kind of ways you can tell that. Most of the tags that are in garments are white, and if it looks like that white tag is discolored because if it's a blue shirt and it's got a white tag, and then when you look at the tag after it's been washed a couple times, it looks like it's kind of a blurple, like a light purple blue, that means that the ink is probably leaking off that garment. Also, there are some garments that actually say that on there, that it's been dyed a certain way that it can transfer to other garments, and that the preferred wash cycle is on its own by itself. So again, I just feel like Colorfast, and that goes for tie-dye too. Of course, you can set a tie-dyed shirt to be Colorfast. You can treat it, but of course that's more chemicals. But Colorfast is important because I've noticed that you will wear a garment when it's easy to launder. Again, if something's going to be so high maintenance, or you're worried about it staining your washer or staining your other garments, that piece isn't worth it. And that's also something to look for when you're buying, especially from thrift stores, because that might be the reason that garment ended up in the thrift store. The cut might be perfect, the color might be perfect, it might fit perfectly on your body, but then it bleeds like crazy when you try to wash it. So, again, we don't want to buy a problem. The next thing that's red flag is heavy metal zippers in weird places, and especially heavy metal zippers on finer fabrics. I've seen this a couple of times. I've seen like a really lightweight, beautiful dress, and then it has this heavy metal zipper up the back, or it has a heavy metal zipper down the middle. And then that just kind of seems funny to me. I don't know if I have a thing against zippers, but if it's a dress and it's an invisible zipper and it's plastic, when it's a lighter fabric, that's fine. I don't mind that at all. But when it's very obviously part of the outfit, either up the back or down the front, I just feel like, first off, I feel that looks a little tacky. To be honest, if someone wanted to play a practical joke on you, what's stopping them from just walking up and unzipping you down the back or unzipping you down the front? The other thing and I think Beep World mentioned this too, is that sometimes zippers are very heavy on the garment, like it pulls on the garment, and it's just not the right type of tie for it. I think Anna Reed had mentioned that with the bow craze. There was a shirt that has like bows down the front. What's, a good gust of wind coming and blowing it up, or something coming untied can be a bad fashion slip, right? And I just feel like heavy zippers kind of do that. The next thing is, the next thing I'm going to talk about in the line of clothing and fashion is anything that's stinky. And I know this is a tough one because I definitely advocate for buying secondhand, and sometimes this is hard to do when you're shopping online, like if you're shopping from Mercari, ThredUp, eBay, because you might, you can always I always encourage looking at the reviews for the seller, see if they have any neutral or negative reviews that talk about stuff like that. Also, some really reputable sellers will say, from a smoke-free or pet-free home. they'll say that, and that's usually a good sign that, you know, okay, it hasn't been stored near any, you know, potential funny smells. But of course, if you're a seller, you might have an inventory, like you might keep it in your garage or keep it in a storage unit. So, I mean, while it's in storage, it's kind of hit or miss. And that is a nice thing about when you're going to thrift stores. At least you can kind of do, not to be weird, but a sniff check, you know, before you buy it. But funny smells can be a slippery slope. I remember one time I saw this beautiful wool kind of bowling sweater. It was like the 50s with the vertical stripes, and it was just such a cute shirt. But when I smelled it, it smelled like mothballs, and it smelled like mothballs bad. Like reeked of it. And the problem with mothballs is that that's a carcinogenic. I mean, mothballs were used in the 60s and 70s, and we did not know how toxic they were. But inhaling that or washing that, if you tried to wash that, it would get into the water supply, and that's something that we had to get out of our washing and drinking water. So if it's something that it's that stinky, like mothballs, that's a red flag, and you probably don't want to bother with it, because it's gonna stink real bad. I promise you, if you wash a garment that's been permeated in those kind of chemicals, the smell's not going to come out right away. And you could try to air it out. I mean, there's ways to do it, but it's going to take time. And actually, this is a confession as well. I remember it wasn't this year, but it was last year. And you know how I say I like to wait before I buy something. It really has to be on my mind. And I waited for this, but last year I was talking about teal Speedy bags, kind of barrel bags, and how cute they are, and how, you know, watermelon girl summer. And I saw this Dooney and Burke purse, and I loved the way that the outside was teal and the inside was red. And I went ahead and bought the purse, and I got it for a good deal. It was like $37. But the problem is the purse came in, and guys, it reeked of cat litter. And oh my God. And I can tell you, for the last 12 days, it's starting to air out. It's starting to get better. But, you know, it's a material lining. So I washed it gently and I aired it out, and I've got the little packets of baking soda in there, you know, disinfecting it, and it is airing out. The scent is dissipating, but it was so strong. And I was like, wow, okay, I got a deal on this with the price, but I'm paying for it with the smells. And it's funny, the seller was really nice. I'm not knocking the seller. She even sent like a little note card with it, you know, so I'm keeping it. I'm not going to send it back. I'm not going to be stinky about it in return as a buyer. But it was a lot of work to get it to be wear ready. And I sewed a dust bag for it. I like to create dust bags. That's a craft I do. But it's so funny, the little note card that said thank you. I just had it out on my counter, and my cat Max was sniffing it. Like he could smell it. Now it did cross my mind. I was like, okay, is this you know, one of those things where she had it in a bag next to her bucket of cat litter, or did a cat really pee on it? And I was like, oh God. I didn't see any evidence of urination on it. I think it was just stored next to, you know, it was, again, stored in a closet where it was right next to a bin of cat litter or something like that. I don't think a cat got mad. You know how it is. If you don't clean your litter box fast enough, the cat will get pissed and piss on something. So I don't think it was that scenario, but that was my stinky secondhand buy story. So that can happen. So the other thing is, when you're dealing with kind of pre-loved bags, and this was one that I actually found at a thrift store. I found a nice Esprit bag, but clearly it was probably stored in kind of a place that was exposed to the elements. I cleaned it up real good, but as it's airing out, you know, I like to clean the leather with both cleanser and moisturizer, and then I like to steam clean. You can sometimes pull out, it's always good when you can pull out the insides, the lining of the purse, and really steam clean it or wash it. But as it's air drying, you have to make sure that it has plenty of ventilation to air dry properly, because the other thing is mold. I love vintage things, but if something smells moldy, if something smells like it is just not salvageable, you don't have to go for that. That would be a red flag. So, and I know it's kind of tough because when you see the person, you think, oh yes, I can bring this back to life. You really want to pause a moment and really evaluate whether or not it's worth restoring, because if it's, you know, like the Dooney bag, and just like, you know, the Esprit bag, if it smells like it's got some crud on it, you don't want to have to deal with that. That might be, you know, that might be something that you just got to let go. But of course, use your best judgment. There's some real gems if you're willing to put a little bit into work into restoring it. Now, the next thing is anything that is pilly or sheddy. And I've experienced this. I have bought some pretty expensive sweaters. I remember one time I got a magenta sweater that was beautiful, and I bought it off of eBay for like $30, and it pilled like crazy. It was 100% cotton, and it's crazy because sometimes 100% cotton, when it's quality, won't shed at all. Like it's most of the time, like especially if it's a cotton silk blend or a linen silk blend or a cotton linen blend, the chances of that shedding are very, very slim. But I noticed that this left little magenta fuzzies everywhere, and it drove me insane. And again, there's a little bit of a toss up. If something's brand new, it might shed a little bit at first because it's just, you know, it's new, and it's, you know, once you've washed it a few times, the pillage goes down. But just like we mentioned with polyester, if it's polyester or acrylic, that is microplastics. If it's 100% cotton, that's not as bad, but no one wants to be dealing with little fuzzies. Also, you can get one of those little shaver machines. I have one of those, but sometimes there are garments that just shed like crazy, and even after you've shaved them, washed them a couple times, if they're still pilling, that's a red flag. And you can kind of tell, and again, when you're buying it secondhand, you can kind of look for that. If it's been washed a couple of times and it's still got little fuzzies, that might be a red flag. And especially if it's polyester, because that is going to be microplastic. So you definitely, if it's going to be a fuzzy garment, try to look for 100% cotton, because if, you know, and try to discern whether or not it's going to be, you know. Now, the next thing is anything that's hand wash or lay flat. So this is another where popping your tag is really helpful. If something's going to be high maintenance, I can promise you're not going to wear it a whole lot. And if you're not going to wear it a whole lot, then it's going to be taking up space in your closet, not being used. So I kind of rank that with as bad as being, being itchy or scratchy or something like that. If you're not going to wear it, then, and hand wash, of course, one way that you can save water and save the planet is not washing your garments as often, but we're going into the summer season. I'm not saying don't wash your clothes if you've been sweating in them like crazy. If you've only worn it once and you feel like, okay, it was a second layer, I didn't sweat on it, it smells fine, you don't have to wash that as often. That's good for the planet. But if you're actually wearing this garment and you need to launder it, you don't want anything that's high maintenance. So sometimes when I pop a tag, I like things very low maintenance. I like wash and wear, wash, dry, So anytime something says hand wash or lay flat, that's going to be a little bit, that's when you get into the high maintenance zone. Now you can navigate that. Of course, you've got, there's the laundry bags. Of course, I have silk skirts and silk tops that I put in the zip bag to put in the washing machine, and you run it on delicate cycle. That's a good alternative. That's one way that you can get around the hand wash side of things, if you put it into a garment bag and run it on a delicate cycle. So that's workable. But where I get into trouble is sometimes knit fabrics. And again, it's funny, I did see an episode of Anna Reed. I like her channel. She has good suggestions. She really is an advocate for knit dresses, and knit dresses were a little bit of a red flag for me, just because I felt like they fell into this category of being high maintenance, that when you wash it, you can't really hang it up because it would pull, the weight, a knit or an open knit would have a lot of weight to it. But I did actually find a cute little sweater dress that's really a majority cotton, and I was able to wash and dry it just fine. What I did is I washed it and then I dried it like halfway on a low heat and then kind of hung it up, and it didn't stretch. and it's a cute little, I can see what she was talking about again, and this is where you can kind of have these as a barometer and then break the rules as you need. But so that kind of goes into it too, is that, you know, if something's going to be kind of high maintenance or lay flat, you want to look at that and think, okay, is this a piece that I'm willing to commit to that to have in my wardrobe? In that same vein as knit, just because knits can snag, and again, I'm a hypocrite. I have open knit sweaters that I wear all the time in the summer, and again, I can kind of, if I'm afraid of it snagging, I can put it into a garment bag and wash it. So it's not the end of the world. But the other thing is heavy when wet. Again, you know, if you have the space, and a lot of people don't have the space, and that's the problem, is you know, if you have to go to the laundromat, or if you don't really have a laundry room that's big enough to put one of those kind of net, you know, lie flat devices, having a piece like that in your wardrobe is going to be a lot of maintenance. But again, you know, knits, I play by ear. I have 2 knit dresses, and they've been pretty wash and wear. They have not been high maintenance. You dry them on low heat, and you know, again, once they're dry, they're kind of gonna, the weight of it's probably going to stretch out. So of course, use your best judgment, but that's something that can sometimes be a red flag in my mind when laundering. A few other things on the clothing side is what I like to call bacteria sponges. Again, I try to watch how many dresses I have, because dresses don't get worn as much, and so they're beautiful, and of course they're kind of my weakness, because I'll think, oh, that's such a beautiful dress, I can wear that to barbecues, I can wear that, and then it ends up in my closet not getting worn 30 times. And I know it's really tough because it's summertime, but I have to admit, I've been good. I have about, you know, 6 dresses, and they do get wear. But the thing is, sometimes dresses or jackets will have shoulder pads in it. And it's great if the shoulder pads have the little buttons or the Velcro where you can take them out. You know, I try to steam clean, because you really want to keep that disinfected. But extra padding and things like that, I just call them bacteria sponges, because that's exactly what they are. If you wash them and they've got some kind of sponge in there, and especially with more vintage pieces, I have a lot of clothes from the 80s, that's going to be building up some nasty, right? But if you are able to take them out and, you know, either, you know, sanitize them other ways with like heat or steam cleaning, that's a good antiseptic way, you know, to get a good blast of heat that is not moisture based. That is an excellent way to disinfect things, and then you can just wash the other part of the garment. But again, you know, if something has a lot of gathering, where, you know, it's going to be this pleating that absorbs moisture and makes it harder, especially if you can't dry it, if you can't put it in the dryer, that's something that's kind of a red flag for me that I look out for. The other thing is low-waisted. I know we're kind of going back into a low-waisted thing. I love the high-waisted trend, and what I like to do is sometimes there's not always dressing rooms in thrift stores, but I'll hold up the waistband and see if it goes to the midpoints on my waist. Like, I'll just hold it up and see if it comes to here, and I can kind of tell. I've seen a lot more jeans nowadays actually stay on it, which is wonderful, whether it's mid-rise, low-rise, or high-rise, so you can get a better distinction. But trying to measure it, and if you're buying it online, you know, secondhand, eBay, ThredUp, pay close attention to the measurements. It's always good to have one of those tape measures that you can measure your waist, because, you know, my weight fluctuates, but I bought a beautiful skirt and it was just too tight around the waist, and that's a shame. You don't want to waste money or not be able to return something if it's not fitting correctly in the waist. So, paying attention, the waist measurements is a big one. The other thing that is a red flag for me, and this is just from previous experience, is an all elastic waistband. It's funny, I'm a little bit against that, just because I have big hips and a big butt, and if I have to pull on pants over my hips, that stretches out the waistband. It might fit perfectly, again, it's kind of like that one size fits all. It might fit good around the waist once it gets to my waist, but I have to kind of stretch it out to get it over my hips. And elastic does wear over time. Like, elastic will start losing its it's gathering after it's been worn enough. And so I also feel like, again, it falls into that. It's not cheap. It's a good way to make sure that everyone can wear that garment, which is always a good thing. But I just noticed that regular button and zipper, that actually fits your waist, those tend to be the best way to not stretch out the garment or have the elastic wear out. The other thing is the tie waistbands, like the drawstring. That's been popular, and again, I'm a hypocrite because I had a pair of linen pants that were drawstring, and they were very comfortable. But the problem is it did look a little paper baggish. The gathers were cute, but and this is a very popular one. I'm seeing this for summer, so you're probably, I'm going against the grain here saying this. It's just, it does kind of remind me of Ellie Mae, from the Beverly Hillbillies. It kind of looks like that. It does. It just looks a little too paper. It looks a little too paper sackish for me, and I felt like it distracted. I have a cute little small waist, and I felt like it made it look kind of dumpy, and that might just be me. Of course, if it looks good on you, that's a good way to get away from the. That's a more natural way of getting away from the elastic waistband, but tie string can sometimes get a little hit or miss. The next thing is talking about colors and body types. And I know I was watching a video by Beep World who talked about how she is not into the color charting thing. And I can completely understand. Color charts are hit or miss. I'm not swearing by them, but I'm just saying that they are a good way to get a guideline as to what looks good on you. It's funny, the book that I like to use is called Life in Color. And I like this because it's very diverse. You don't, there's different skin tones and different ethnicities represented in it. And when I took the test, I came up as a star color chart, which is a lot of bright colors. Like for instance, right now butter yellow has been big, and I don't look good in butter yellow. It makes me look very washed out. Last year, very Perry, which is periwinkle, was popular. But you notice how on this chart, the bright lemon yellow looks good. Now, I like to pair a bright lemon yellow. I do wear it a lot, but I pair it with light blue or like light wash jeans or dark wash jeans and navy. I don't really, there is a way that you can do black and white and offset that with a contrasting color, like a primary color like red or yellow, which is what I like to do. Recently I did a post that I had like a very comic book kind of t-shirt on. I don't normally dress like that. I just thought it looked really cool and the contrasting colors. So, and I felt really empowered wearing it. So that's the reason that I kind of did that contrast. But my point is that when I took the same quiz, I also classified as a moon. And moon are, softer and more muted colors, including the pastel pinks. And I do look good in pink, but I just feel like the colors when looking at my closet fall more into the star. But this is where, coming back to full circle, color charts are personal to you. If you feel like that, you take the quiz and the color chart that they're offering actually reflects what looks good on you, go for it. And again, we've talked about in some of these fashion videos, tomato red and butter yellow and pastel pink are really in for the summer. But if you feel like that doesn't look good on you, or from past experience that just, when you hold it up to yourself, it just doesn't look good, that would be, where these type of quizzes can help with that. And, I'm not swearing by it. I know Color Me Beautiful is doing the color charts, or you could pay to have it professionally done. I think one of these books, you can borrow it from the library. And again, when it represents all cultures, I really like that. And I just feel like that's a true guideline to follow. And I have to admit, it has not failed me. Like if I go for, you've probably seen that Ziploc commercial that says yellow and blue makes green. When I look at the blues and the bright yellow that it offers there, when I put it together, those are the greens that look good on me. The more earthy greens don't look as good. If I try to put on beige or butter yellow, that makes me look very washed out. So I just do think that, using your best judgment. The other thing is body type, knowing your body type. And again, you don't have to go by any variations. The other thing is this is not to deter you from experimenting. I remember in one video I talked about like column slip dresses. I'm more pear-shaped, and sometimes that does look a little funny on me. Does it prevent me from wearing the fashion? No. I will still play with it. I'll see if there's a way that, maybe a bolero jacket or something else can help balance out the silhouette and the proportions where I can pull off that look. But knowing your body type is very helpful. Also, there's tons of quizzes both here on YouTube and in magazines that can help you find. There's a great channel named Ellie Royden. I've noticed that she's broken it down into 8 types, and she does have a quiz at her website. It's kind of like looking at a magazine. I took the quiz and I just wrote down, each question, is your answer a A, a B, a C, and I just kind of logged down how many A's, how many B's, how many C's. And it's funny, I ended up, just like you have your 3 words, she encourages you picking your 3 strongest designations. And I think over there I'm a mountain, stone, and mushroom. And when I look at the descriptions, it really matches. So, and again, this is to have fun with it. This is not to say, well, I can only wear this, I can only wear that color. No, this is to, half the fun of spending money on clothes is to experiment with your style. This is a fun way that you don't have to spend any money and you can be investigating what looks good on you. That way, when you go out into the world and want to purchase new things, it's going to be a match to what really suits you. Now, before we go, I'm just going to talk about purses for a minute because I've talked all about red flags with clothes. One last thing with clothes, weird pockets. Weird pockets. I enjoy having a good pocket on pants. I don't like it when it weighs down the garment, like if it's a skirt and you can see the pockets just like dragging, pulling. That looks a little awkward. But if it's like a hidden pocket that if you have, your keys or your sunglasses in it, you can't really see it, or if it's an interior pocket that makes it easy for you to stow your wallet and stuff like that. I love a good pocket. I think that's great. But sometimes you can have extra pockets in weird places, both on jeans. So I've noticed I haven't been able to find it, but there's a great video that talks about how to find the best jeans that look good on you. And if you have a bigger booty, if you have a bigger butt, higher, smaller pockets on the back really give a better silhouette than big pockets that are lower placed. And you would never think of this in a million years. I wouldn't have think of this in a million years, but it's a visual. It's like a silhouette with jeans. Same thing goes with shirts. There's kind of 2 reasons that you might have an extra pocket somewhere. With the fashion industry, in order for a design to be different, there has to be 7 points of difference. If you want, I explained this more in my my eco dupe video about the sweater that I had made. But what happens is if there's a real hot shirt that's been made by one of the big fashion houses, the fast fashion places will try to dupe it, but in order to not get sued, they have to have 7 points of difference. And what they'll do is they'll add an extra pocket somewhere, and that adds as 1 point. So for each pocket, it's 2 points of difference. So that's one reason you see that with a shirt with a bunch of extra weird pockets. The other thing is that, and I've seen this, I'll actually post the video below, is that this is also how people are getting around tariffs. I know this is crazy, but if you have those 2 pockets on a button down, if you just have a plain button down shirt that has no front pockets, that's considered business attire, and that is subject to regular import tariffs and taxes as if that is a garment, a garment worn for work or for pleasure. If you have a button-down shirt that has pockets on the front, that's deemed utilitarian And I know, this is crazy. I didn't know this. And there's actually a great video that talks about this, about how people are getting around tariffs, which is also very wasteful. What they're doing is they're repackaging things. They'll get something in, take it out of the box, put it into a different box to deem as a transformation. That's also in that video. It's getting ridiculous. It's causing so much waste, and all it's doing is going around what's trying to be implemented. But if you have extra pockets, that's considered utilitarian. You know, you think of a zookeeper's button down, and that's how they can market and not have to pay for it being shipped into the country. So that might be another reason, and that also might be why it might look a little cheap, as if it has extra pockets that aren't really necessary. So that's something that I look for too. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is talk about purses, because this kind of plays into what you wear. I love a good purse, but first off, we talked about zippers on dresses. I feel like zippers on the top of a purse, I don't like them. The reason why is just because when you zip it open, if it's a really tight, like leather bag, you kind of have to use two hands to open it. And I don't like anything scratching at my hands or catching on my rings when you're going inside. Now, I do have an exception. Remember how I said I've broken these rules? Is that I do have a Coach bag, and this is a vintage Coach that has a top zipper. But what it is I've noticed that when I open it, it flaps open. I can unzip this. It unzips easily, and when it's open, it gapes enough naturally, but just because the leather is so, you know, durable, it opens up where I don't have that problem. I can get into it pretty easily. Same thing goes with interior zippers. I don't want to have to be like, you know, having to really fight the bag. So and that's one of my pet peeves, is I really feel like if you have a bag on your arm, you should be able to get in and out of it easily within in 3 steps or less. You should be able to get in and get to what you need. Otherwise, it's going to be a big pain in the butt, and it's probably not going to be a functional bag. It's going to be a bag that's pretty, but you can't really use it functionally. The other thing is, if a bag is overly floppy, like it's just not very structured, and there's no interior pockets, again, you gotta rummage around, you gotta like search, and you know, if you have to stop and take the bag off your shoulder in order to get to what you're looking for, that's not very functional, and you're not going to end up wearing it very much. The other thing is, if it has one of those frames, I have a bag that's like this. It's got a frame. My dumpling bag that I've shown you before, if it's got to be the jaws of life trying to open up that bag, that's you know, again, if I need 2 hands to just open it, to get to my sunglasses, get to my car keys, that's going to be a pain in the butt bag, and I'm not probably going to end up using it. And the other thing is overly short straps. If I feel like you know, it's up in my armpit and I'm going to be sweating on it, I don't think, you know, and you're seeing this a lot more. It'll have a short strap, but you can buy an extender. That's just ways they can get you for more money. And then the last thing is sequins and beading. This plays into both bags and garments. I saved it for the bags portion, but you can see some really beautifully sequined or beaded bags. But the problem with sequins is, even though you don't wash your bags very often, sequins pop off, beading pops off, and that is immediately going to make it look dated, and it's also going to make it look cheap. So, you know, beading is high maintenance. The other thing is, a lot of sequins and beading is done by, there's just the labor practices. There's you know, everything is mass produced in other countries. And if something's beaded or sequins, that is probably going to involve some labor where someone was not paid a living wage. Now, of course, that might be different if the brand that produces the purse is known, if they're on good on you for being a good labor practice, you know, producer. That's all well and good. I actually saw a really cute, and this applies to t-shirts too and clothing. If you have beading, it just, honestly, it kind of just like ribbing in garments and, you know, and stretch waist. It looks a little cheap to me, just because, you know, that, you know, you can get sequined garments pretty cheaply, but And trust me, I'm tempted by it too. I saw this cute cowgirl shirt that I really, really liked. But when you looked up close, it had the little, it wasn't even a big beading, but it was like little sequin studs that were, you know, and I just thought, okay, that's going to be a pain. If I put that in a washer and one of the studs pop off, even if I put it in a garment bag, what if that gets into your washer and blocks up your washer? You know, are you going to, you know, kill a major appliance because of a little bead stud? You know, that's problematic. The other thing is, again, once it pops off, it's going to look damaged. It's going to look like, okay, you know, so, you know, high maintenance to launder, it's going to look cheap and damaged after, you know, you lose one of them. And that's probably going to make you not want to wear it as much. It would just be too much trouble. But again, if it didn't, I was looking at that shirt and going, gosh, if it didn't have that beading, I would probably buy this. So that's something to keep in mind too. But okay, I hope I wasn't too gloom and doom. Again, I've showed you a few examples of how I break these rules all the time. They're not hard and fast. If you find something that really works well with you, you know, these are red flags, you know, just to be helpful. The next video I'll do is green flags, because of course for everything that could be, you know, not so right about a garment, there's plenty of things that can be absolutely right. And of course, if it's a heck yes, that's a good thing to go with. But if you like what you see on my channel, I would be very honored if you'd like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next video. Bye.